All right, say it with me, everybody. Menstruation. Now you. Menstruation. All right, this is 20th Century Best Boys, a film podcast, an amateur film study podcast for the average Joe, the buffest buffs, and the cringest bingers. I am your host, JP, and I'm joined by my brother, professional Hollywood videographer,
Kory, with a story. And here we're just here to talk about growing up, what it's like to be a boy in the 20th century with these
and a
20th
woman,
century
and a woman, obviously.
Yeah, all these 20th century people we're just learning how to be.
Yeah. Well,
century.
we're in the 21st century now. As come on makes quite clear. These little kids making me feel old. But yeah, real excited to talk about these today.
Yeah, these were ones that I saw a bunch of like screen grabs of Come On specifically, but I had heard of 20th Century Women a bunch, and just went in not really knowing what to do. But this is a good week. This is a great week in film for the Best Boys.
Yeah, I'm glad because I really wanted to show you 20th Century Women for a while, and then finding out that this guy had a new movie, which I was already interested because I saw A24 and Joaquin Phoenix, who's great, obviously a great actor, and yeah, super interested. But before we get into that, what's going on? How you doing, buddy? How you doing,
I'm
friend?
Doing good. Just working on a bunch of random things. We started Perry Mason up. I was supposed to fly out actually today, but it got canceled, or pushed, I should say. So I'm not going out there until next weekend now. But yeah, so just juggling that and a couple other shows for BTS on, and my writing partner and I just got a good idea for a script coming up of just kind of like, how am I pitching it? Atlanta, but with janitors, I guess is how I'm pitching it. But it's interesting and it's fun. It's fun just like writing something even if nothing happens with it.
Yeah. That's actually reminds me of a idea that me and Joel had. But I think one time we wanted to do like amateur musician life, like band or whatever have you, rappers, what have you. And just like the life on the road, and it would be kind of like Atlanta, but more like DIY oriented, smaller than that, or underground. And that's funny that you mentioned that. It sounds like a good idea as well. I don't know why I think of like a Danny McBride like kind of show.
Yeah, so like the
like vice principals or
so Kevin, like I had this idea for just like the opening of a short film, and I pitched it to Kevin, and Kevin was like, wait a minute, that would go great for like the opening like short or episode or whatever we do if we do a pilot for this thing that I was working on. And I was like, oh sweet, so we like it like melds perfectly in together. That mine's like my idea is the cold open that goes into it, but it's like elementary school janitors, but it's like shot in like the very serious gritty like Atlanta style that they shoot the show in. But it's like one of those like serious like it's serious stuff, but it's also ridiculous and and funny at the same time. Like
that's
smart
definitely
comedy.
I think that's the vibe. Atlanta has like a weird, like it's a comedy, but it's like this weird, almost Twin Peaks kind of vibe where it's mysterious and off. But that's cool. Glad to hear that. Get the creative juices flowing. I am wrapping up the leg of the D&D campaign I've been running since the pandemic started. So
forgot about that.
So yeah, I'm gonna be taking a break soon, which would be nice. So we free up some new things to do. But all right, let's get to it. Let us get to it. So I bet you didn't know anything about Mike Mills, right?
Nope.
I didn't either until watching 20th Century Women. I saw it around the 2.5-ish years ago, and it was right around the time our mom passed. I think I saw it beforehand, and I think after I watched it a ton, like 4 or 5 times. I think it was just like a comfort thing, and It's just I knew it would make me cry, and it's not. I don't even think that it was that sad of a movie, but it just really hit a lot of spots for me as far as coming of age and being in different points of your life and whatnot. But so I heard he had a new movie coming out, like we said before, and I've really been wanting to see it for a while. I think we mentioned it on the podcast before, and just the way that indie films get released, it's really they tell you it's out and it's everywhere, but it's like either delayed or it's only in select places or it's only in places for a short time, and it's always different. And there's like very vague details for these movies online. Maybe somebody in the know could tell me, but yeah. So I was really excited to watch this. We actually watched this one together, at your place, which was really nice. We had a great time. And
best boys first, I think.
Best boys first, yeah.
Watching it together.
So yeah, what did you think about Come On, Come On?
It was really good. It was really good. And how good it was didn't set in until I like slept on it. And then the next morning I just like kept thinking of it. I replayed some scenes, like some clips from YouTube just to kind of like get into the feel again of it. And it's so good. And like I think I said to you as soon as it ended, I was like, this movie's very adorable, but I didn't mean it in like a kids movie type of way. It's just such a real, honest, and wholesome story, but it has so much feel and emotion to it that it's just like it made me feel good after watching it. Like I felt so like happy. Like I know that you guys like this is a tearjerker of a movie for sure, and it didn't get me in the tears, but it just got me in just like the feel good. So it's there's so much to like relate to on this. There's so much to like unpack, and especially as like you and I get older, and like we still don't have kids yet, but we will probably soon enough. It's just like dealing with having your own life and your own routine and all that, and then having to drop that all for a kid, and especially one that has like a very specific like day routine of how things have to be. It felt real, felt honest. This is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. So I was talking to Riss after, I think it was yesterday, and about it, and I talk about art. My favorite pieces of art, are things that are like this middle road between happy and sad. It's this melancholy, like there's hope and there's joy, but there's also sadness and just realizing things about life. Like as far as growing up and things that you lose as you grow up, and how short life really is, and like we're all still children on the inside, and there's so much like that. These are my favorite pieces of art that make me feel sad, but they make me feel happy. They make me feel good. And it's beautiful. And it's not like I cry almost tears of joy, but it's also I'm sad about, regret about the world, and the movies that make you feel, not movies, but art that really that moves you, and a lot of people, being moved sometimes, makes people cry. And I used to like never cry in my 20s. And then it just got to this point where I was really like, I felt like I was being more receptive to my experiences, whether personal or with art, with movies, film, music, and more. And yeah, that's been a thing. Like I feel like when there's something that's really special to me that I really, really like, that it sometimes manifests that way. It doesn't always, and it's not a prerequisite to a deep movie or a moving movie or whatever. But this is definitely a perfect example of that. Both of these films, honestly, but this one, both of these films for sure. I think that we talked about the vibe of this director, and only knowing these two films, there's definitely the style is different as far as how these two films are put together, but the vibe is very much the same, I would say.
Oh, so much similarities between the two, from the score to the reading out loud narration of like the different passages of books and writings and stuff they both have, and just like how I texted you earlier about this, like it's just very easy to watch regardless of how intense something is on the screen. It's just very like there's a way of the storytelling that the bad things don't feel bad. They don't feel like there's any true negative thing, and there's no music to associate that, but it's very spacey, and it's very just kind of like, well, this is life feeling throughout it. and it's very unique, and I'm very into the style, extremely into it, and I'd love to see beginner is what it said before the trailer of 20th Century Women. I watched the trailer after the movie just because people said it was different than what the movie was, but I'm 100% into seeing whatever this guy has outside of.
Yeah, apparently Christopher Plummer, he's a longtime actor. He was, I don't know if he's I think he was just nominated for an Oscar for it. And I guess that was the movie that put him on the scene, as far as people wanting to work with him. I think Joaquin Phoenix specifically chose to do this movie after Joker. I read in an interview and I think it was because of the huge contrast that it is from the Joker. Still a small, drama, but so much, pretty much a 180 in a lot of ways, in terms of emotional depth, I really think. And it's just shows the range that he has as an actor. I think might as well, while I'm talking about it, the Gabby Hoffman also is in this. And I've seen her in a couple other things. I've seen her in some comedy stuff. I've seen her, I think, in other A24 movies. I can't remember which one. And she's very good. And she was like, this is like a perfect role for her. And I really like the chemistry that they had together. And then obviously the kid, Jesse, played by Woody Norman, is really, really good. He's kind of, he is like the fun of the movie. It kind of goes through him, and even when it's sad and there's the chaos and things, like he is, what the whole movie is really around, and the managing of like babysitting this boy, essentially, raising, taking care of this child for a few weeks, and getting a taste of what it's like to be a parent. But yeah, what do you think about? Come on.
The casting wise, I was at first a little off about the Joaquin Phoenix. I know his voice when he's doing these. This one reminded me of his voice in Her a lot because it's very soft spoken and stuff like that. And at first, I didn't know if it was working for me. But the dynamic relationship you have between the soft spoken, kind of reserved, only does his job, and he, you mix that with like this rambunctious kid who is just like a mile a minute all over the place, and just like you gotta keep his attention, or else you lose him. You know what I mean? And it ends up by the end of the movie being such a good dynamic and so fun. The Gabby Hoffman, I can't remember what I've seen her from, and I pulled up her filmography where you're talking, and I some of the stuff seems familiar, but I can't put my finger on it. But overall, I think it's a perfect cast.
I saw her in Obvious Child with Jenny Slate. It was like a rom-com kind of thing.
Gotcha.
I think I've seen her in TV too. I don't know, maybe it was Girls, something like that. But yeah, she's very good.
Oh, Louie. That's what I've seen her in, Louie. All right, that makes sense. But yeah, very good. Yeah, very strong. It's a great mix. I feel like we've had a couple good weeks of like perfect cast choices, and that's the nice thing about these like more indie movies where there's not like we need to get the biggest name person on it, or the mainstream like big movies, where you can actually cast to specific of what you want because there's not as much money on the line. But it's cool. It's so cool. The cinematography on this, I will say, I went a little back and forth of. I like a little bit more contrast in my black and white. Like that's why I liked a lot of the Tragedy Macbeth. But this has such a muted black and white, but it's also very like muted in its like kind of overall delivery. Everything is soft. Nothing is abrasive. Nothing is like harsh or hard at you.
Yeah, I think that's the tone. Yeah, like, that's the tone of it. It fits the tone much more. It's muted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues with the way it looked. I actually really liked the way it looked. And then I've seen movies in this lighter, like muted grayscale before versus like you brought up Tragedy Macbeth. That use it. It's a darker movie overall. A lot of this film is during the day, or at least like or lit rooms.
It has a great feel to it though.
Yes, yeah. It's a lot of fun, but it's also, there's a lot of emotion, and so I really enjoyed the beginning, with getting to know the kids, and they go back to this in the middle. So what Joaquin Phoenix's character does is that it's for like an NPR kind of show, is what I was getting at, and he interviews children and asks them about, questions about the future, or like deep questions, essentially. Not necessarily adult, like they're not like offensive questions or anything. They're just, big questions, and hearing their answers and realizing some of them are kind of just babbling a little bit, but a lot of them, especially the further and further we go into the film, are really like some insightful and really interesting takes. That stuck with me a lot through the film. And then you kind of focus all that through this one boy, and they hold off what his answers to the questions are. That's the kind of like what we're waiting for to the end of the movie. But it's like all through him, and like their relationship, and it's kind of represents these big ideas and feelings that these children have, but in the day-to-day, everyday life, and going through the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the perspective on it, at first I didn't get the like what it was at first, but then it was like you show every time it goes to Joaquin Phoenix throughout the film after he's got Jesse. When it goes to them working stuff, he's a little less like I guess stiff with it, where it's just like it's like of a job, and he seems more like relating, more relaxed and open with the kids by the end of the movie, like when they get down to Louisiana and stuff. So it's like I love that as a use of showing where Joaquin's character is subtly in his like role in all of this, like his position with Jesse and his sister and stuff. The most impactful thing, though, you brought to the attention when we watched it, was the scene where it's like, it's toward the end of the movie, and it's like, I'll remember this, but you probably won't. Man, it
Yeah,
just
that's the
like
thing that stuck with me the most of the whole thing.
it's
And
such a powerful line.
the 20th Century Women has a line like that too that sticks with me, and I'll bring it up when we talk about that. But that's what, like, these big ideas that these movies, like, they're small stories, but they evoke strong, big feelings and big ideas and thoughts about life and the world and our place in it, and growing up and being a boy and being an adult, and going through these phases, getting married, etc., or not, and making those choices. Because that's a theme with both. Is atypical arrangements, living arrangements, and situations. That's why I love this guy's stuff. I was obsessed with 20th Century Women, and this is also fantastic. Like, I would love to watch it again. So one thing I wanted to talk about, and this is the one interesting thing, and I feel like is what makes this, I won't say make this movie unique, but it's different from 20th Century Women, which is the side story with the dad, struggling with mental health issues. And we were like seeing it throughout the film, and he's having problems checking himself into the psych ward, and his hesitations, and that's what his mom, Jesse's mom, had to go away to do, and why Joaquin Phoenix has been staying, watching him for a couple weeks. What did you think about all that?
I thought it was good. I thought it was smart. I like, it's like it's a way to build the connection between Jesse and Johnny, without making it seem like the child's being like abandoned, because there's bigger things going on that like have to be taken care of. And it's like, I think Gabby Hoffman's character is just like in the right, like doing what she has to do, and then it sets up the whole greater scheme so that they can reconnect their sibling relationship as well. And it's just interesting because you see so much of him in the kid too, in the way that how the kid has his quirks and things. So it's just like wild seeing like what the like two different aspects, like the completely innocent of it, and then the adult kind of like very in the gutter, so to speak, versions of just like these two people from the same. I don't know. It's hard to explain
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean in the gutter.
what I'm saying, but it's just done very well. Well, because you have like the dad is struggling with the mental things, and then the son is clearly has some form of social attention things, and so it's just like you're using your framing of that is just like this is what the worst of it can be, but then you have like this kid who's had something I wouldn't say not the same thing, but similar along the lines that is just like pure innocence of it at the same time. And it's just like it's interesting when the kid starts talking about the questions and stuff about like the dad and all that, and just the I don't know. It's hard to explain the juxtaposition of the two, but it's something that is like a connection that I see that I really enjoy. I'm just having a hard time putting it into words, I guess.
I mean, he's just an eccentric kid. I don't necessarily think the movie. And Rissel thought some things about the boy as well. I don't necessarily think the movie was trying to say anything definitive about Jesse. He's just he's grown up in a atypical environment, and he has some things that he does, but it's nothing like debilitating or preventing him from having a normal life. He does mention that he doesn't have a lot of friends, and he mostly is around adults. But yeah, he has some issues socially with his peers. That's for sure. And it is interesting to see, like you wonder, like the movie does put that out there, like, is it because of, is it inherited by his dad, or is it like, because of the way they've interacted, or just like his dad not being there, or whatever. Like, it's not defined, and you're meant to think about, I think, some of those things and what they might do, or what it might mean, or whatever. I don't think that whole section is like a vital to this film. I didn't dislike it or anything, and I think it's good. I don't think it takes away from the movie at all, and it makes a really good reason for the mom to be away and what her to be dealing with in a unique but real situation. But it ends up being a vehicle for these two to and a lot of Joaquin Phoenix's thing, as I said this before, is realizing just how difficult it is to raise a kid, take care of a kid. In the very beginning, he's like really fun uncle and silly and whatever, and then as it goes on, he's it's wearing him down, and he realizes it's not all fun and games, and there's a lot of you have bargaining and reasoning you have to do with them, and keeping them their habits in check and whatnot. I thought that was all really interesting. It just felt real. It all felt real. As much as like this guy's job is not an everybody's typical job, since he's like all over the country. That we didn't mention that, but the locations are there's in Detroit, in New York, in L.A., and in New Orleans. Those are the 4 places of the movie, and it's cool. It does provide a variance, because I will say with the grayscale, I had a hard time of telling some of the apartments and houses that they were staying in apart that kind of looked the same when you can't see the colors. But I think that was kind of meant to be that a little bit. Like, it didn't really matter. It was just about like their interactions,
Yeah, I agree with that. That's because I even said at one point, like, I couldn't tell if we were in Louisiana or if we were still in New York. But the
outside was how you could tell. It was the inside didn't matter. Yeah. It was the outside. Every time you went outside, it was like, oh, they're here. Oh, they're here.
Yeah. I wonder, and it's probably just the also adding to just because he travels so much for work, where it's just like every hotel is the same. So wherever, and this kid is just going with him, so every hotel is a home. Every hotel is the same, like at the end. But I like that. There's so much of this that just focuses on just them two talking in a room, but is done so well and not boring.
I saw that. Sorry, it made me think about that. I saw that Mark Kermode from the BBC. I watched his review of this morning, and he mentioned that it's like almost mumblecore. I don't know if you're familiar with that indie genre. I think we may have talked about it before, but you might not actually have experienced. You probably experienced it, off the side. But have you ever seen like Safety Not Guaranteed?
Yeah.
Okay, that is supposed to be mumblecore adjacent. Anything with the Duplass involving the Duplass brothers is usually in that vein. Joe Swinberg is supposed to be a big one. I have a list. I want to like get into mumblecore a little bit because I've liked some of the adjacent A24 things I've watched, but this is definitely in that vibe. Like a movie that the plot is very loose. This movie actually has much more of a plot, I would say, than 20th Century Women, in terms of like a conventional narrative. But the plot is loose, and the main movie is about the main like vibe of the movie is these conversations between characters, realistic moments and conversations between characters, and yeah, just living through these different moments and this kind of collage of moments adding up to something, or the characters like realizing something about themselves or the world or whatever. This is definitely one of those. Both of these movies kind of are, but this I think is much more. I wanted to bring this up because so much of like we said, the vibe of these two movies is so similar, but the way they look and feel is a lot different. This movie feels a lot more real. Like the way it's shot and with all the real kids in the interviews, made it feel like, you know, it was almost not a mockumentary, but like a pseudo, like kind of like Kids. Kids is in that vibe. Like it's realistic, but it's a fictional story. It's kind of in that, and I like that a lot. And I like 20th Century Women too, but I think there's something. You're obviously watching a movie, whereas this, you kind of suspend that and just live in this moment, this real ass moment between these two people.
That also helps when you take out a lot of the side characters to just focus in on this family. Because there's only 3 people you really have to pay attention to.
There's really, I mean, there's peripheral people that we know their names or whatever, but it's really just 3 characters, and plus the dad. The dad probably makes a 4th, but he doesn't talk. And the mom, their mom.
Well, that's why I was talking about the mom, the kid, and Joaquin would be the 3.
Well, the mom of Joaquin and Gabby Hoffman.
Sorry.
He has cancer and is dying.
Yeah.
Like those, her and the dad are probably on the same level. The dad with mental illness. I feel like there's not like a whole lot to talk about because you're really just like kind of stewing in this, you know, and like the movie does change and evolve, but it's really just going deeper down into this world and whole and these experiences. So it kind of, there's not like a whole ton to talk about. I can see people that are like, oh, got really into Joaquin Phoenix after Joker, and they're like, I want to see what he does next, and then they watch this and then hate it. I can absolutely see that happening.
I mean, like, where do you go after Joker? How do you do anything better? You know, I mean,
stop it.
Like,
wrong Joker.
I know. That's all Jokers from here on out, though.
Yeah.
Ruined.
So while I'm thinking about it, the music was done by Aaron and Bryce Dessner, known for the rock band The National. I'm familiar with The National. I listen to them a little bit, but not like a super lot. I think Riss listens to them a little more than me, and I know people like them. And I did like the score a lot. It's interesting that the score of both these movies is similar and it's done by different people.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just what the director likes, like style-wise. Like, give me something spacey.
Yeah, it has to be. And I like it more in this than in 20th Century Women because like this. I mean, I do like that 20th Century Women explicitly does not use a fuckload of music. Like, it does use music from the time, but it's used in like ways that make perfect sense and aren't just like a gimmick. Plot. They're not just a gimmick to be like, hey, reminder, we're in with 1979.
Here's times they are changing for the 12th time today.
Yeah, here's times they are changing, Zach. Then honestly, never mind. I'm not going on a Zach tangent. Anyways.
Oh, he uses the same songs over and over again.
Yes, I know. That's what you're sparking in me. But yeah, this was an excellent film, and I think people should give it a shot. I think people should give it a chance, and I think you're gonna feel things. Whether you walk away with it feeling happy and hopeful for the future, your own personal future, or the world. I don't necessarily think I felt good about the world hearing all these kids talk about it, and like some of them
Yeah.
were like, they were like, yeah, it's gonna be all right, but it might be worse, but it'll be okay. Like we'll still be all here, but it might be a little worse. Was essentially what it all kind of distilled into. I did want to mention that one of the kids interviewed, and all the interviews, like I said, were real. They were organic. They're not scripted. I believe his name was Devonte. I lost the last
Oh
name.
yeah.
It says
He's
it at the end. And apparently he died after the movie was filmed. He was shot and killed. Like I don't know, it was by like accidentally in a shooting. And it's super sad, and it kind of adds another layer of realism to the film. I think we forgot to mention that all the children interviewed, I think, were first generation immigrants, or their parents are first generation immigrants, so the children of them. And it's like that's another layer, and I think we talked about it after. Like, there's not a whole lot of. I didn't think there was a whole lot of connection beyond that, but I'm sure somebody could point something out to me. But it didn't really matter. Like it made sense for an NPR story that they do something like that. Like that was enough for me. It just added a whole nother layer. Like not only these are kids, but these are, the children of people that aren't that moved here, and so they're gonna have unique perspectives. They're gonna have more fresh eyes versus the people that we've lived here for generations.
Yeah.
But yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to mention about Come On?
No, we hit on the cinematography and everything. Yeah, everything. It's just great. It's switch it up. Give yourself a tearjerker. It's a good movie.
I did want to mention the runtime is 108 minutes, and boy, is it an easy 108 minutes.
Yeah, it's very, especially once you get to the second act, like it flows so.
I still don't understand what you mean about the first act. Me and Riz talked about it so much, and just like we are at a loss with what you mean, because the pace and feel is not really that much different in other parts of the movie. It felt like you weren't ready for what it was going to be, and then you settled into it, and then it was all right. But I mean, I don't know. You probably won't know until you watch it, or either of us watch it again. Sorry.
Yeah. I was gonna say I just thought it was a little slow in the beginning, just in the very beginning, like first 20 minutes.
But how? So. But you need to explain how, because the movie's pace is pretty consistent throughout.
Just in where we were going with as a film, and like just the setting up of what the overall thing was. And Kylie had the same thing. She also thought it was a little slow in the beginning.
She didn't say that then, but
no, she said, we were talking about this morning. Because she was asking me what I was going to say on the podcast, but that was it. I mean, it just I'd have to rewatch it to go, but I just remember the initial feelings of it just kind of being like, all right, well, this is all right, this is cool, and then it was one of those movies where as it goes on, just enjoy it more and more.
I was the beginning is a lot with the interviews, and I was super interested in his job. Like I didn't know where it was going to go, and I just wanted to know more about it, and like that alone was interesting to me. So I wanted to see more, and then they introduced Jesse and Viv, his sister, and like this movie was really, really good about slowly revealing information, and like it wouldn't be as good if you knew everything at the start. It walks you into the world. There's a line, something like you never get to know everybody. It's the mom says to Jesse, and Jesse repeats it to Joaquin Phoenix. My mom says, like, we love each other, but she'll never really know me, and I'll never really know her. This movie very much feels like a real life, like you're getting to know this person, these people, and when you first meet somebody, you just know them at face value, and then as the longer you live with them and you stay with them, you slowly learn more and more things. As they reveal themselves, and this movie is very real in that. It doesn't, you're just open with Joaquin Phoenix doing his job, and then we find out about Viv and Jesse, and that's kind of how he's heading there. I don't know. I don't understand, but I mean, it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's
not enough of a thing to like detract from this movie being great.
No, it's
Yeah,
just yeah, I thought it was strange because it's paced so consistently, and
I think it's because
the
I
interviews
think
are so interesting in the beginning. I just don't understand, but I
I guess
will
I
let it go.
wasn't
I can
as
let it go.
I guess I wasn't as interested in the interviews because I didn't know what it was setting up at first. And
But
it's like,
but it's interesting at face value. Like if it was just an NPR thing you heard on the radio about these kids and what they're saying, like I could have listened to that as it was.
I don't know. I guess I was just ready to like get into I don't know, because it's like once you get to the second set of interviews and stuff, it's fine. Like everything's fine because this is like you have the feel for the movie and everything. So I guess just like navigating of figuring out what this movie's going to be while you're watching it. Because like I said, by the end of it, like it all works. It's all good. That was just my only like post to watch initial critique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
But,
you just weren't into the kid interviews. I don't know. I'm still like having a hard time understanding exactly what you're meaning, other than like you weren't into it until you got into it.
Yeah, essentially, I guess.
But like, is it a matter of because like that's what I'm hanging on is like it's the same. The movie does not change, so it's really just about you slowly learning. Like once you've learned enough information, it was enough. It was you were satisfied to just chill in it. But you were like, hurry up and give me my information.
I guess, yeah, because it was like it's still impatient. As soon as it was over, it was like the only negative part I remembered was just like being a little like wanting this to pick up a little in the beginning. But yeah, I mean it's cool. It's also just kind of like a feeling, you know. It's just kind of it's one of those things. It's like you may not be able to identify after one watch of just why you felt a certain way, but it's just that's your initial reaction coming out of it, and it's just going back and figuring out why.
Yeah. Expectations is another thing. But I mean, like you talked about it beforehand, like you knew it was going to be, you know, a slow indie thing.
I mean, I just knew it was A24, so I have that.
No, we definitely talked about it beforehand, and I said, you know, this is going to be a slow indie thing, and you're like, I'm excited. Yeah. I'm gonna get,
yeah.
You know, I'm just gonna turn my brain off and whatever. But yeah, okay, all right. But all right, what are you scoring it? Now I'm worried.
No, I was gonna say after initially coming off out of it with a 4. Like I said, the next day, like rewatching some of the scenes and stuff, I liked it a lot more. I'm gonna give it like 4.5.
I'm giving it a 4.5 as well. I'm giving it a 4.5 as well. It is excellent. Both of these films are excellent to me, but yeah, this is very good, and you should check it out.
Because I was gonna say the last 5 was The Power of the Dog, and that's what I was like thinking of myself comparing this to, and I felt like I was more emotionally invested in Power of the Dog than I was in this, and that's like the main difference of why. Like,
when I also like Minari, I think about the other
Minari is a 5 for me as well.
I think I gave it a 4.5, but it's on the similar kind of level. Like, I think these are better than Nomadland, but they're not as good as like Power of the Dog has just got a lot of oomph to it. It's because it's crazy. That movie's crazy.
Yeah.
But this is hard to compare when it's a chill vibe.
Yeah.
I remembered something I wanted to compare. Belfast. This movie.
Yes, I had that too.
Okay, so this movie is a much better. It's not like Belfast is different. It has the history and the violence, the Irish violence and stuff. But this movie is so much better. It seems like Belfast is like trying to make a movie kind of like this and ends up feeling a little more hollow, whereas this has so much more soul to it to me.
I wonder if the reason that is because Belfast is from the child's perspective for the movie, and so it tries to have those moments that feel a little more Jojo Rabbity and stuff, whereas this is from Joaquin's perspective.
Think they feel Jojo Rabbity, but yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
Specifically
I know what you're saying. Because and like that is the reason why some things are a little like silly or theatrical.
Yeah, they don't work the same. But whereas this is Joaquin's perspective for the movie, so it's a lot more, especially for us in our like being men and around like a little younger, but in that age range ish, being a lot more relatable, and then it's just a lot more like because those are things that you and I are going to go through someday, and so it's just like the connection is
Maybe.
very strong. Like potentially someday.
Um, yeah, I mean that might be part of it. Is it that's a period piece thing, and this is modern and more easily easily relatable. But yeah, I just think it hits the vibe better and has it's more emotionally impactful, even though it's smaller and more nuanced. I think it just has more soul, and its style is so much more consistent. Where was my big issue with Belfast is inconsistent style. But
this
all right.
feels like it knew what it wanted to be going into it, versus Belfast just kind of had a lot of ideas for like things, because it probably Kenneth Branagh is based on his childhood, just like, oh, these specific things I want to incorporate, but they might not all like beat the same just for the sake of telling a fun story or telling part of a story from your youth.
All right, I think we're ready to move on here on this Mike Mills double feature, the 20th Century Women. Now, like I said, this movie I fucking was obsessed with. You gotta think. I'm trying to think about the things that may have created a bias or a reason why I clung on to it. I mentioned that our mother passed away around the time I was watching this, and cancer was involved, and that cancer is a thing in the movie. But also, I was living in the city, or I just moved out of the city. And it was very much involved in a lot of art stuff and the scene and bands and punk-ish things. And I was listening to going back and listening to a lot of music from the 90s and the 80s and the 70s and stuff, and trying to come up, broaden my creative horizons. And art is a big theme in this movie also. A lot of the way I feel about art is articulated so well in this movie. So I think it just, and like feminism, I was just, I don't know if the wave is over, but we were in the tail end of a feminist movement, wave. I think it's third wave feminism or something. And that's a big part of it. And just learning a lot about, as much as it's the title's 20th Century Women and feminism is a big part of it. It's not like it's a women-oriented movie. The movie is about this boy who's growing up in this strange a boarding house situation, and there's a collection of people in it in his life that are different from different decades. They are completely different ages, so young to old, and they all have a relationship with each other. There's like this weird loose family. And they're all very different, and they you think that they don't have anything in common, and it's kind of mentioned, and they find these common grounds, and they give each other these ideas a chance, and it's just really nice. And I really like that. This cast is fan-fucking-tastic. This is probably one of my favorite casts. Movie put me on to Elle Fanning being a G. This movie put me on to Annette Bening being a super G as far as an actor. Greta Gerwig also is fantastic. This is the first movie I ever saw her in. I saw Frances Ha after, which is great. Super big fan of her. Billy Crudup, Dr. Manhattan, the motherfucking self, is a smooth pimp as well. Probably shouldn't use that word in this film, but he is, a really cool guy. Kind of like this dorky, aging hippie. And he's kind of like losing his place in the world as it's changing, and it's just this really interesting dynamic with these different characters, but they kind of all fit together. So that's my big introduction. What did you think about 20th Century Women?
This movie is very unique, to me at least, in the storytelling and the cast and everything. And it's like, because watching this after Come On, like immediately picking up on all of the the directorial style similarities and stuff, but this was it's one of those ones, because you told me it was slice of life going in, and slice of life it can be shot a bunch of different ways, but this one, the way
it's
that it
definitely
kind of
a lot different.
Yeah, the way it kind of hops around, or that you have those those narration moments just talking about just
It's
where
much more
people were.
grand.
Yeah, it and the way it cuts back and forth around these, or how it can frame scenes and bookend them between those kind of like narration points or the bits of like reading the literature or books and stuff.
Yeah, there's like a
aloud.
multimedia approach.
Yeah.
With you see stills, you see clips,
Yeah,
news,
yeah, yeah.
you see news clips, you see like the Polaroids that Abby takes because she's a photographer. Like there's a lot of different things at play, like style, like little style things. I keep thinking about when they're driving in cars and it's all blurry and like colorful. Like it's not slowed down, it's like sped up, kind of time lapsey looking thing.
Yeah. But it has like the trails, like a time lapse still has, like a long exposure shot.
I did.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say just aesthetically, this has such a nice look, and even though a lot of the interiors, like obviously, are sets by the way that they're lit and the way the camera moves through the walls and stuff, it's done in such a nice, fun, like I don't want to say dollhouse kind of style, but it does have moments of that in this film because it's a big boarding house.
And when it's like being renovated, so there's like scaffolding and there's the walls missing and stuff like that. And I didn't think about that, and that is really interesting.
And it's like one of those things where it's like, I definitely think this is a movie I will absolutely adore upon the second watching. I still really liked it. I'm not saying I didn't like it.
Yeah, of course.
All. But this is one of the ones where now I know what I'm in for, and now I know what I'm supposed to pay attention to. I don't have to keep up with any of the things that's happening, but it's really cool. And then the whole just unique thing of, I didn't really realize that it was just 3 women from different, or 4 counting Billy Crudup, but all these people from,
or even the boy, it's
17,
all 5 of them. All 5 of them
you've got
are different points
15, 17, 24, 55, and then Billy Crudup, I'm assuming, is in his late 40s.
I think he's in his 40s somewhere. In his 40s.
And they're all of these different just like plot points of how they lived or how to live are all getting attempted to be ingrained into this boy who just wants to be himself and like pave his own way. And it's so interesting. And at first it was like, I feel like it almost had like the mom is just like, she doesn't know what to do with her kids, so she's pawning them off with the 2 other people. But then it's like, when they have that final conversation, when they have that final conversation in the little cornfield looking thing at the end, and they just like, everybody just said what they should have said at the beginning of the movie, and then it just, it's all you gotta do is talk it out and it fixes things.
And everybody's learning, because even Annette Bening, I think of the scene where she's sitting in the car with Elle Fanning and they're smoking cigarette, and Elle Fanning is throwing all this psycho babble at her because her mom is a psychiatrist, so she's like trickled down, learned a lot of it, and so she's like talking about the men you see are inappropriate and blah blah blah, and it really had Annette Bening reflecting on herself. And then she goes to the punk club and goes to the punk show, and she has this like awakening of self, and she like comes back and she's so happy and whatever. Like people are like really confronting what makes them unhappy. What, is this what they want to do with the rest of their lives? What is it that they want to do with the rest of their lives?
Coming to terms with who you are as well.
Yeah, who you are as a person.
Annette Bening's whole thing is like getting pissed off anytime anyone tries to like tell her how she is. Or like define her in ways like, she immediately gets defensive and apprehensive.
There's some really good lines in this film. The one Annette Bening one that sticks out to me is wondering if you're happy is just a shortcut to being depressed. That's a good one. Like that was like a mentality of back, like a Depression era generation of we don't have time to be depressed, and don't question, just live, do what you're supposed to do and live your life, but don't think about it too hard. And then I think about Billy Crudup's character. He's kind of the post-free love, and I think he's seeing what happens with making a lot of these sexual connections, and there not being anything behind it, and these women just use him because he's good looking, but they're not really interested in him. And Abby even does it. Abby even has sex with him, and you kind of uses him, and he's into it. But then I think afterwards, and especially after he talks to Annette Bening's character, that he realizes that he wants to settle down with somebody. He wants to be in love. or something. And I think he tells a story about like he's still hung up on a woman from his past, from the commune days. One thing that's really cool about this as well is these different people with different perspectives, but also coming with ideas from the times that they thrived in. So Annette Bening, how many times they say she's from the Depression. She grew up in the Depression. And Billy Crudup is obviously from the 60s, and he's got the hippie mindset. And anytime he gives his 2 cents, it's always something about, the Earth Mother or meditation or... I think they pull out some... Abby gives the boy a book, Jamie... a book about feminism, and Billy Crudup William is like, oh yeah, I love this one, and he immediately flips to the thing about home births, and it's like not why that's like not the main reason why Jamie should read this, and he's just like talking about how home births are so great, and then Elle Fanning's like, whoa, well, the new psychiatry of today says that that's not good, and obviously what she's saying is not true. If you think about where psychiatry and psychology is at in the 70s, it's advancing a whole lot, but it's also like there's so many new theories and ideas that there are stuff that did not stay, because it wasn't true. Just like today, you think about all these wild theories people try to throw, but it's probably even worse then when you don't have the internet and whatnot.
All the decades of testing and trials and things to go off of.
Yes, but a lot of what she's saying is, also those are real things, and Abby is just super cool and super hip and super in touch. But she's got the thing with her character is she has cervical cancer, or she might have cervical cancer. I think she did, and it ends up being fine in the end. But that's hanging over her character. I might not be able to have children. That might hurt me with a potential partner, whatever, and it's just these different things that people are going through. I'm gonna pass it back to you because I've been talking for a little while, and because I love this fucking movie, and I've seen it so many times. So like, I realized that this time, I think it didn't have this huge emotional impact with me because I knew everything like by heart, versus the other times. But I wanted to bring up the relationship between Jamie and Elle Fanning's character Julie, with like the licorice pizza young.
I have that written down on my notes too.
What did you think about that?
I was gonna say it reminds me so much of it, and I like this relationship better because it's real.
Much more real feeling.
Yes, 100%. And like the other one could have been, but it's just the whole 10-year age gap like just sits in your head the entire time that it makes it feel weird at the same time. This just feels exactly the way it's supposed to.
It's like much more realistic.
Like they're 2 years apart, but in that 2 years, like I think in the beginning of the movie he's 14, but he ends up being 15 by the end. But that 17 versus a 14-year-old in the beginning it's a massive. It's
me versus you.
And
I mean, and like, and when you're a kid and when you're a teen, like 3 years is such a huge difference. Like that's so much development and experiences and mental things, and so I just know from my own personal experience, and I'm sure there's other people, but I've been the younger person pining after an older girl, and I wanted to be with them, but they it was never gonna happen, but they wanted to be friends and they really liked me, and I think that's like what I liked, like licorice pizza, like that's what I was interested in about it. And that movie is obviously super over the top, so it's not gonna feel as real. But like, I think this was so much more believable, and they don't end up together in the end. They don't, but it's this feels so fucking real, like chasing that. And obviously you have a bond with each other that's deep, and she feels that way too. But it's not, a sexual thing. And he's going through puberty, and so they're so fucking confusing to deal with those situations. And I think it really articulated it well, really, really well. And I like that part of it. I like that part of it a lot. And I wanted to maybe think about so Annette Bening, the mom, at some point is like, yeah, I need help raising him. You two need to give him some more feminine perspectives, more modern feminine perspectives. But the things that Julie and Abby tell him are completely different things. Sometimes they're contradictory. Some of the
Yeah.
advice from Julie is just bad about, you know, I mean, when she's attracted to dumb pieces of shit, and he doesn't understand that. And I remember that being a thing when I was a teen boy. Like, why are all the girls attracted to dumb bad boys? And she
Yeah.
kind of explains that a little bit, and then she gives him advice. Well, if you want to get the girls like me, then you need to act like that too. And it's kind of, you know, I think he's realizing, you know, I'm not like that. I'm not one of those people. And Abby, I think, is more, because she's older, more mature, and she's like, no, you don't need to do any of that. And she points out that there's some toxic elements of Julie and Jamie's relationship, and, you know, you should still be friends and whatnot, but you need to set boundaries. And so all these things are super relevant today. In like the 70s, the 1979 period. I don't think it's really vital, but then it is at the same time. Like, you could tell the story in 1999. It would have different bells and whistles for the time, but this is such a timeless. A lot of these elements are just timeless.
Yeah, it's you can relate so much to Jamie's character with this too. Didn't have the like older woman situation pining thing growing up, but but so much of the other stuff about it. Like I was gonna say what you're talking about, the contradictions between Abby and Julie, because you have, like, in my opinion, Abby is like it's telling you the proper things to a point. Obviously, when she's like telling them how to hit on girls properly to like get them to kiss them and stuff, like that's a little more fun and silly. But but when she's the one that stuck out to me was when she comes in drunk when Julie and him are sleeping. He's just like, and she says it right in front of Julie too, which is funny. It's just like, you need to tell her that she cannot stay here
if they're not having sex.
If they're not having sex, because it's disempowering. And I was like, oh my god, that's so funny. Like, because that's, I feel like what it's funny hearing a woman telling a man to be more empowering, like in that kind of situation. Coming from like the more feminist like trope thing, I guess, and which I think is intentional. Like,
I think there's more to sexual education and understanding like the whole picture. You know, like feminism is not. It is feminism. It is, you know, women's rights and the ways that we should be. The ways that women are not treated fairly in society, but also it's, you know, sexual education and learning about dating dynamics. And, you know, it's not, feminism isn't about women taking advantage and shitting on men. It's about people being treated fairly, and it goes both. And at the end of the day, it goes both ways. And like I really like that scene, because it illustrates it for people that aren't in the know, that, you know, if they're on the outside and they think it's all about being triggered and whatnot, and it's like, no, it's just about people wanting to be treated fairly, and they want you to be treated fairly too. Like, they don't think women should assault men or they don't think women should oppress men. That's not what it's about at all. It's just like, you know, in that struggle you have to fight, and in fighting becomes, you know, there's negativity or conflict or whatnot. Yeah, love is a battlefield, you know what I mean? But I really liked a lot of that. So I wanted to bring up the other line that sticks out to me the whole movie, because I think it comes in right after that scene, is when Abby says to Jamie, you know, whatever you think that your life is going to be, just know that it is not going to be. No, she says, whatever you think your life is going to be, just know it isn't going to be anything like that. I have it written down. And I think I said that to you once before, and I think you may have took it as really defeatist and negative, but it's more like when you're a kid and you're imagining, oh, I'm going to be this when I grow up, or you have dreams, you know, and you can't predict the chaos of life and what you're going to be dealt, or the choices that you're going to make and the paths that it'll take you down. And, you know, don't like you're gonna be disappointed at times, and by the end of the movie, I think everybody realizes that there's a light eventually. Like you come out of that feeling of lost and purposelessness,
Mhm.
and of feeling lost, and but yeah, like the life is chaotic, but life is beautiful, and to enjoy that, and I don't know. I really love that line because I think it's super accurate, and it's just like the you're not going to remember this when you're older, and it's sad, but it's
Mhm.
true. Um, and it's a very true thing, but uh, it's okay, and it's something that is it's part of the randomness and in the journey of life.
Mhm. Yeah, the line that stuck out to me a little, like that one is 100% true, and in a lot of things. But the one that I liked, I thought was more fun with it was when Annette Bening was saying that like men just think they need to fix everything for women, but sometimes you just need to just sit there. Uh, and I love that. I like because that's so much of just like the overbearing stuff of men, and like everything has to be like, well, why can't it just be whatever? But it's just like sometimes people just want to vent and be themselves, let their emotions out and stuff.
It's like one of the
um
very few overt lines about men in the movie. I remember
yeah,
the first time I watched it with the title that I expected to be more of that kind of stuff. It's kind of like one of the few examples, but then they just like the interactions with Jamie with other boys his age after learning some of his shit. But it's really um, it's like learning that there's different people out there, and there's different kinds of people that aren't going to think the way that you think, and you kind of just have to let them go. Sometimes, like if you try to fight them, then you're just gonna get into more trouble than it's worth, and because there's the whole the art
yeah,
fags,
yeah.
and and like the punk, the I don't know, it's something that I feel a lot. There's Black Flag is cool, like Black Flag is a good band, but like I like Talking Heads also, but there are people that I think come from that opposite perspective. Like this is Black Flag's my favorite band, and I don't like any of that softer, artsy shit. And it's not just about hard and soft, but it's like some people have a predilection to artsy things, and some people have a predilection to other kinds of things. And there's like a divide sometimes with like relating with other people, and it's okay, like it's not a big deal, but to them it's a big deal. um but yeah, what did you think about any of that?
I thought it was I initially started laughing because I know you like the Talking Heads whenever he's talking to the kid, and he's saying they're talking about the clitoris stimulation shit on the half pipe.
Yeah,
And the guy's like, "Of course you'd say something like that. Do you like Talking Heads something?" And it's just funny. It reminded me when we were kids because like you just die hard defended who you loved as your thing, and it was almost like being on like a sports team, or like that's your thing, and anything that is not that is bad
it's
and
your
wrong.
identity,
And
it's part of your
yeah,
identity.
exactly. And anyone who says they don't like it is that's there. You feel like it's a direct attack on your identity. Um, but yeah, it's just so it was a funny, like a funny-ish moment that had so much reality into it just from being kids. This movie does so both of these movies do that
But
so
there's a
well.
bigger theme with that. Like it's more than just that scene, because then you have the scene with Annette Bening and Billy Crudup, and they're listening to a
Comparing the
Black
two,
Flag.
yeah.
Yeah, comparing the two, and like I always think about like, or also a Greta Gerwig's description of punk and what punk is, and it's like
Mhm.
people like I have been friends with like
Passion
people
over
that
talent.
Yes, and I've been friends with people that are really into technical music, and people that are really good at playing the instruments, and they just want to hear something be done technically. Even with rap, like you want to hear somebody with bars. But the punk ethos is like the raw energy and what it produces, and like sometimes that is something that ends up sounding really cool and magical, or just like it just is like a new idea because they weren't sticking to the standards, the rules of the genre as it was before, and I resonated with those ideas a lot. towards the end of BB Guns and making music. Um, because like that's what I was trying to get at. Like we had technical skills, but like you need that other side of things. You need to be able to channel the raw passion and like that's what I think produces some of the best art. Obviously, nothing wrong with people that are into technical things, but I think that whole those couple scenes really describe what makes more raw art really really special, like street art or stuff art made with either uh, less like inferior tools or with inferior skill. Um, and yeah, this sums it up great for people that don't get art, the art on that side of art. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a cool way to think about it that way and everything. Is it's somebody who's always liked punk music growing up. I know I never looked at it as being that. I always looked at it as just being like, oh, this is just a different kind of talent, or it's just a wanting to do something different. Um, but yeah, I love that explanation of just that's the passion over talent,
And
essentially.
it transcends music. It's film.
Yeah,
It's whatever
anything.
art you want. It's paintings. That's why some modern art that's like some paint splashed on a canvas will sell more than for some like Bob Ross style landscape. Like that's like even though the Bob Ross landscape or even like Thomas Kincaid, whatever basic landscape artist you want to name, but that is technically better, right? But
Mm.
there's something that of the other piece, the modern art piece, that evokes something in you. It moves you, um, and it creates a value beyond the technical ability, and that's what makes raw art really cool. And I've always gravitated towards it, especially over the last 10ish years of my life.
Mm.
And yeah, that's one of the big things I resonated in this movie. It was such a good explanation of the kind of shit that I'm into. um, and this movie's not raw either, and that's one thing I wanted to bring up. Is I think this movie is not raw at all. It's very polished
Mm.
in the way it looks and the score and everything, and like the multimedia presentation. As much as this movie's about punk, it's so interesting seeing it presented in such a polished, beautiful kind of way.
Mm.
Even versus Come On, Come On, Come On, Come On is less polished, like filmy looking. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know the reasons why and can articulate them, but this looks more like a movie. And that Come On, Come On looks more like real life or like
Yeah.
real, like documentary, like real footage of people.
Yeah, and that just comes all down to like the shot choices and stuff. Like the 20th Century Women has so much dollying and sticks, and it's very steady. It's very
I don't.
calm.
I think it's the way the actual like the it looks like the picture looks. I don't mean the
I
way
mean,
that
that
it's
goes hand
moving
in hand
around.
with that.
I
Uh,
know, but I think it's the main thing. Like I get what you're saying. There's much more
yeah,
simpler.
yeah.
There's much more simpler camera work in Come On, and that is part of it for sure. Um, but it's
But they
also
both
like
do like I would be curious to see what Come On in Color look like just for the way they lit it because it's very similar in how they do their soft overhead lighting for those like more set room stuff. It's just a matter of the when you take out the color and then you mute it a little bit, it just creates more of a
it's higher
you're
production in 12th, 20th
yeah.
century women. For just whatever that ends up is like lens flares, and I'm just looking at
Yeah,
the
I
the
think Come On looks better, like, cinematically, and
Yeah,
from a technical
I'm not
perspective,
saying like
but
overall like what looks better than the other one. I mean like one looks more produced and polished than the other, whereas the other one's crisp and simpler.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we're like, I think Come On is mostly on location too, which is a big difference, versus, like, shooting on sound stages for the interiors.
yeah,
Um,
but I just specifically mean like the way the camera looks, not how
mm,
it's moving around. Like I feel like it's Come On is a lot flatter. It
mm.
looks like I don't know if they're shot with the same thing.
They're
Do you
probably
know
yeah,
any
they're
of
both,
that
I
or the
think,
lenses or whatever? I feel like there's
uh,
something different
they're both
about the way that they look, and I don't know enough to say why.
I would say I wanna say they're both on ARRI Alexa, and then but the Come On looks like it's on newer like sharper lenses.
I think maybe that's what it
It
is. It
has like
definitely
it
looks
has
like a
more of
newer
a
like
sharper,
a
like
newer
grittier.
movie.
Yeah. Um, and also just 4 years later, different ways of processing footage, different raws,
There's
different.
like more gloss, like kind of on like just
Mhm.
more gloss in the way it looks. It looks like a higher budget movie, even though it actually has a lower budget than Come On, Come
Yeah.
On. Like that's what I mean. Yeah, it looks like there's much more. Um, like it's just nicer shit, even though I guess it's not. But yeah. So this movie's a little bit longer. I remember thinking that like yeah, I could tell that this movie's going on. I'm really into it every time I watch it, so it doesn't bother me. Even the first time, but I did notice that it's longer, and comparing it to Come On, it will feel longer.
Hmm.
Did that bother you? Did the runtime bother you at all?
Mm, there were parts where it felt a little like slow again, but it's just one of those things where it's like, now that I've seen the whole thing, it's like Come On, where now that I've seen the whole thing, I would probably enjoy the pacing a lot more on the second view.
I think
But
that's what how I probably watched it more.
but I didn't have an issue with the overall of it though. I thought it was like a little like I had the same feeling as the other one. There's just parts where I felt were a little slow, or maybe it's just me not caring in as much in those parts. But overall, it's I think it's fine.
I
That's
so
not a deal breaker.
what's the big difference? I think I mentioned it earlier, but there is a much more loose plot. Like it's these characters living together and having all these conversations and learning about each other and life and whatever. But it's there's a much more direct plot in Come On, Come On, and this
Mhm.
it's like it's loose and they're just seeing different moments of these people living together until there's this big change that happens within them. And I like that a lot. It's like it's one of the movies that I'm sure I've seen other and liked other movies like this, but um it's one of the ones that I will always bring up first is the ones I like. I remember I got showed a mumblecore-ish movie like a long time. It was like a decade ago. It was called Drinking Buddies, and it was with Jake Johnson and Anna Kendrick and Olivia Wilde, and it was like a lot of talking and a lot of conversations, and I remember being like, this movie sucks, it's nothing, it's just people talking. And then I found out that it was part of this whole genre that is literally about movies about nothing and people talking, and like Seinfeld minus is like the physical comedy, and just
That's
dry,
a funny way to
really
put that.
dry dialogue. um
Yeah.
and I thought I'd never like a movie like that. And now I watch them, and I watch them all the time, and I like them, and I'm interested if I go back, because I even look on Letterboxd. Drinking Buddies has good reviews. Maybe it's just I've grown so much in like my attention span and what I'm willing to sit through and what I'm willing to watch, and that maybe I'm just different, and it's not really that movie didn't suck. It's just I wasn't at the right point in my life to watch it.
There's so many movies that like I already that like we've rewatched as for the podcast since seeing as a kid, where it's just like I was not mature enough or emotionally enough there to really understand what I watched and why it's good or why I didn't like it and stuff. And then as in now it's just everything is so much more relatable. Everything is a lot easier to grasp. Growing up does that to you, I guess. um yeah, I've been still trying to figure out what camera this movie shot on, and it's not on shot on
Yeah,
what,
it's just
but
not a lot of information about these flicks.
yeah.
I was just trying to look too. But honestly, is there anything else you particularly want to talk about this movie? I there's one thing before I pass it to you. I
I have one, but yeah.
The Jimmy Carter speech that they play, like 2/3 of the way. It's like towards the end. I never
Oh
heard it
man, it
before.
was so good.
I never heard it before. And if you know the Jimmy Carter, the history, he's a president. He was a one-term president, and he was not popular because there's a lot of shit that happened. There was the hostage situation in Iran, the gas crisis that were linked. I think the economy was like slipping a little bit at the time, and obviously Cold War stuff. And people wanted somebody tougher, and Reagan came after that. And like we all know Reagan. And I always wondered, as a Democrat, one-term Democrat, did he get a fair shot, and was he really a bad president? Because when we were kids, obviously, Dad thinks Jimmy Carter is a terrible president because he's a Republican. But so back then, I knew that, but now that I'm outside of that bubble, and I never really heard anyone talk about him. I looked into that speech, and I looked into his policies, and he's a really interesting guy. And I think that is a really good speech. And now we know the history that speech fell on deaf ears. It was not long before his re-election campaign, and he lost. But that the speech has stood the test of time, I guess. But yeah, I don't really have much to say beyond that. But I thought it was super impactful to me, and I think being in Trump world, it was like really longing for a president like that. When our current president at the time was like the opposite, like not a soft spoken peanut farmer.
Yeah.
But
The
yeah, what do you think of that?
I just said I was gonna say that I was with Annette Bening when she was like, I thought it was beautiful because it's something that I feel like people need to hear now of just like the
Yes,
whole like what is it? The speech is called the something of confidence speech of
crisis of
confidence,
confidence.
crisis of confidence.
It's
Yeah,
about people losing
um,
faith in the government, like the American people losing faith in the government. Like
yeah,
they're doing their best, and like we're doing our best, and like it does like, oh, boo-hoo, I don't feel bad for the government. But today, even then, I don't know. But
yeah.
there's more to the speech than just that sentiment, that really makes a lot of sense. And we're still
And the way
dealing
that
with the shit he's talking about.
Yeah, and the way that in the movie, the snippet they picked almost made it, 'cause for me at least, it felt like it wasn't talking about the government, but it was like talking to the individuals that we all need to just kind of like deal with complacency, deal with like how life is. It was almost like a speech. The way that that excerpt was cut was like a speech being like, "Hey, we all are advanced enough as society and humanity that we're like this is it, and I think we're all aware of it, but that doesn't mean that like life sucks or whatever. Like we just have to find new meaning in ourselves, like new purpose."
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's like challenging the average American in a pretty a deep way that honestly I can understand why it did not resonate with the American people, because I like those heavy kind of concepts I don't think they can deal with today, let alone in 1979. Um
Especially not in
the
today's world.
average,
But I
at large,
yeah, yeah,
but
the
yeah.
40%.
But all right,
Um,
what are you giving?
well,
Sorry, go
real
ahead.
quick, I had this is the only last thing, and it's a small thing I wrote down because, and you might think I'm insane for saying this, but for some reason, and specifically in 20th century women, every time it went to that like spacey music with the narration, it's just like talking about these things that are happening. It just reminded me of Evangelion when everyone's absorbed into the LCL and it's just like one conscious mind, because it feels like it's just like, all right, we're picking this person and we're just showing everybody all this background,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
it's definitely a
which I
little
like.
like ethereal, or like there's something otherworldly about it, especially in 20th century women.
Mhm.
Like the hearing the different characters talk about this moment in their lives in like this detached third person way. Um, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I wasn't the first few times I watched it. I wasn't sure if it was like not cheesy, but like maybe a little overdone. Like it could have been subtler. And then obviously in Come On, it is that sort of shit is subtler. So I did want to ask you about that. Like, did you think? I think you're more forgiving with that sort of stuff than I am. So maybe you didn't think
Mhm.
anything about it. But I did wonder. Especially the first few times I watched it, if some of that stuff was a little on the nose or over the top or anything.
I know it sets up an interesting dynamic with the rest of the film when you have it. So I think that's why I'm okay. Like it doesn't. I don't think it's too on the nose or any, because there's these like they're almost these little character exposition dumps, but they're done in a way that like that feels natural at the same time
Like
because of the way
many
they're
little
set up
time
throughout.
skips too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's like these little transition things between the two, like these the time periods that we're in the film, and it's like through the year. Like it's not like they're jumping around. They're just jumping around
Mhm.
weeks maybe, but but yeah, I do like it. I do like it, but it is something that makes the movie a little bit longer. And I think I do think it adds in the end, but I did question
Yeah, I
about
would
it.
say it's at its best at the epilogue because it is that's where all the feels hit for me. It was just like the like has kids, Annette
Well,
does find another person, and
yeah. Well, we find, but
uh,
it's wild that we find out that she dies. Like we find about like the ending for some of the people like
yeah,
halfway through the movie. If we find out Annette Bening dies of lung cancer
mm,
in the fear of Y2K in 1999, right before the ball drops, and it's like really sad. And because I've our like I said, our mom just passed, so I think it made me just think about that. And pretty much from that movie, or from the point where Abby is crying about, your life isn't going to be what you think it's going to be, and you need to get out of this town, and blah blah blah. And then there's a scene with Annette Bening, and they talk about her dying, and then like there's this uplifting ending where you find out that it kind of all works out for everybody for the most
mm,
part. Abby definitely, she's able to have a kid. She has has a nice place and family and everything. Um, and honestly, coming out of a darker period of my life a few years ago, just dealing with a lot of things and transition and change, and now I'm in a different phase of life. I definitely think, and it's definitely a lot brighter, and it feels a lot more hopeful, and I can really relate. That's another thing about these characters are in different moments of their lives, and they're all dealing with struggles, but there's life brings change, and there will be a new day, and there's always a chance to learn. You're never too old to learn. You're never too old to grow, or to change anything about yourself or whatever. And then that's one of the big, I think, themes of the film, beyond the coming of age boy stuff and all the women stuff, the feminist stuff. um I think that's one of the things that stick with me the most about this movie. It's like if I told somebody the title, they're gonna think it's about a feminist movie. And I don't
mm,
know how many scenes is there. We didn't talk about the menstruation scene, which is funny as fuck. That's one of the funniest scenes in the whole thing. There's comedy in several
mm.
moments. Um, but yeah, just super impactful. And I think now I'm away from it. I've seen it, seeing it again. My bias is a little gone away a little bit, and so I'm interested to hear this, to give a score and whatnot. But yeah, that's 20th Century Women.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. What are you giving it?
I'm honestly torn because like I like Come On more, but I think that this movie also deserves like a 4.5. But I think Come On is objectively better, so I'm gonna give it a 4.
Okay, so I originally gave it a 4.5. Like for the long, it's on my letterbox now as a 4.5. Because I've seen it before. But I do recognize. I think Come On is better. I think it's better just because it's somehow like louder and stronger, and it being smaller characters and more intimate story, and the realism and the way it looks and everything. Whereas this feels more like a movie. Like, I don't know. I think that Come On seems much more mature with the themes and ideas of this. So and I think without my bias, I do think this movie's probably a 4. Um, so I am fine with that. But I think it's a really great movie, and I think people should give it a shot. Even if those that think they know what it's about, because they don't.
And don't watch the trailer because the trailer makes it seem like a lot more like fast, upbeat, rom-commy almost.
A24 trailers are the worst because they make you think the movie is different than it is. Just
Yeah,
straight up, if it's A24, don't watch the trailer, because you're gonna get a movie sold to you, and it's like the trailer is meant to get you there. It's not meant to get you to actually know what the movie's about. That's what I've come to realize with modern trailers, and it's particularly A24. Yeah, they want you to get in the seat. They want you to buy the ticket. They don't care if you think that if you understand the true vibe of the movie.
yeah. The trailer for this paints it as like a fun coming of age story, and it's not
It
really.
is, but it's
Like, it
much
is, but
slower, and
not yeah.
also there's more
Like the music
feelings
they
than that.
use feels like like a Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants style music in the trailer, like the way it does it. And it was like, oh, this is completely different feel. But yeah, I can see
That
it.
does remind me. The soundtrack is the real songs in it are also all dope. There's like 4 Talking Head songs in it. Black Flag's dope. The Raincoats I got put onto because of this movie, also really good. But yeah, check it out. Check it out. I think I'm gonna for the podcast officially, probably gonna say a 4. But yeah, it's close.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
very. It's so good in its own way. Just come on. I think it's just a little bit better.
All right. So next week, so we don't have anything planned right now, but it is going to be Valentine's Day. Would we want to do anything romantic, or do we want to see if any of the movies we wanted to see? Let me see if Red Rocket's streaming yet.
We could
Any
watch that
ideas?
movie Valentine's Day.
No.
That all-star ensemble cast. You kidding me?
But yeah, what are you thinking over
Um,
there?
I don't know. Trying to think of good, like like
So
love story
honestly
movies.
the best romance ish trilogy, the movies that I've always wanted to see is the before the Sunset trilogy. Um, what was it? Before Sunset, After Sunset, Before Midnight, or something like that. It's Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, and they like each of the movies is a decade apart. The first one's in I think the first one's in the '90s, the second one's in 2000s, and the third one's to 2013.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this relationship 10 years later, or then 10 years later again. It's pretty cool. But other than that, me and Riss, we're gonna watch like some things. So we don't really have to do anything romance, really, because me and Riss are gonna watch some stuff. We're gonna watch Pride and Prejudice and Bridget Jones.
Ooh,
Um, Riss is a big rom commer,
yeah.
but yeah, we
The
might have to figure it out. Is Nightmare Alley on is on streaming yet?
I think the last time I saw it, it was part of AMC's like artisan pictures still.
It
Like,
says it's on HBO Max. Let's see.
oh, oh,
Yep. All right. Well, then that's what we'll do. Let's do Nightmare Alley and Pan's Labyrinth.
thick.
Unless there's any objections.
The whole way through. No, that's I mean that's the one to pick of Guillermo's.
Yeah,
If
I've
we're,
never seen it. And I want to. I think so too.
I
Nightmare
was
Alley is
told.
2.5 hours.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for Nightmare Alley just because it was in theaters. Like I saw the trailer in theaters, but my buddy who watched it said that it is not. Once again, not like what the trailers is. It's a slow burn.
Yeah,
Like
I figured it's gonna be more like Shape of Water pace. Um,
2.5 hours though. We've been blessed with a lot of 2 hour or
on
less.
under. Yeah, this
This
is
is
true.
real
This is true. I've got some decent reviews, so I'm excited. But all right. Anything else? Anything out there? Oh, I thought I did make a Twitter and an Instagram. I don't know how much I'm going to use the Instagram, but it is Best Boys Film Pod. I will make sure that I post the new episodes and the next like the things that we're going to be doing and what we're up to on there, as well as the Facebook. So yeah, if you want to follow us on there. And yeah, make sure that you do follow, subscribe, like, comment, review, do all those things because it really helps us out a lot. It really gets podcasts out there. That's how the algorithm works. Each like kind of increases your percentage chance of being seen by more people. So, but yeah, so interact, and if you're liking it, and we appreciate you. And yeah, Kory, you got anything you want to say?
No, just tell a friend.
Tell a
And
neighbor, tell a friend.
tell
Best Boys will be back again.
you call 2 people and they call 2 people and you see where it goes.
All right. All right. I'm getting off of here. Y'all have a good week, and we'll see you next time.
See you later. Go Bengals.